defining what success is for me was so important because it is this big cranking machinery, and it is very easy to get distracted by everything that's happening for everybody else.
Welcome to the Funny in Failure podcast, a podcast that celebrates failure and shines the light on the emotional side of comedy, with yours truly, Michael Kahan.
Howdy, howdy, howdy. Today's guest has a wonderful, soothing energy about her with great insights and reflections. She looks deep within, which makes for a great chat. Liz was so easy to chat to. Time flew by. It was great. I love this chat, and I think you will too. Liz Guterbock is an American-born British citizen, stand-up comedian, award-winning actor, improviser, and voiceover artist. In 2023, she made The Guardian's 10 Best Jokes of Edinburgh Fringe and Dave Joke of the Fringe list. Her 2023 Edinburgh Fringe debut show received 4-star reviews from Funny Woman, the Mumble and Pepper Salt, and complimentary press from the Scotsman, Festmag and Chortle. In 2022, Liz was nominated by some of the country's best promoters as one of 10 stand-up comedians on Union Jack Radio's Wants to Watch list. She was a finalist in the 2021 British Comedy Guide Pro Performance Awards and a nominee in the 2021 Leicester Mercury Comedian of the Year Awards. In 2019, she was a finalist in Funny Woman UK Awards and a BBC Radio 4 New Comedy Award nominee. Her new show, Nice, is now out. Check it out in the episode notes. She's also performing in Edinburgh, which is exciting. So as you can imagine, we dive deep and we cover a lot, and we chat about getting into voice acting, moving to England, new comedy shows in Edinburgh, Steve Martin's impact, anxiety and breathing, life-changing lunches and cranial osteopathy, perseverance, nurturing creativity, plus plenty more. Before we get into this epic chat, in case you aren't aware, the videos are now available on YouTube under Michael Kahan. That's Kahan with a K, unless you're listening to it already. I'll still be posting snippets of these chats on Instagram under Funny in Failure, so check them out if you want to stay in the loop for upcoming episodes, or you want to ask a guest a question. I'd also love it if you would share the podcast or share your takeaways from the chat. It really motivates me, helps the podcast grow, and ensures I can lock in amazing guests like this one. And just as a final reminder, the podcast comes out at 3:30 Melbourne, Australian time, with the full video of the podcast to be released the following day. Okay, cool. Thank you. Let's get into it. I heard you in another podcast talk about how Steve Martin's book had quite the impact on you. I'm wondering if you remember it and what the book has done for your soul.
Oh, yes, I definitely remember it. It's called Born Standing Up, and I read the book. I believe I was living in LA, and I read it before I'd ever started stand-up, and I read it because I was an actor in LA, but I was a baby. I was such a baby, and I didn't know what I was doing.
Yep.
I didn't know who I was. And I can't remember who recommended it to me, but I remember reading that book, and basically Steve Martin talks about how he was a kid and he worked at an amusement park, and he was fascinated by magic, by close-up magic.
Mm.
And he kind of traces his career all the way through, from starting as a kid as a performer all the way through to being, a dot on the stage in the middle of a huge arena. Like, he was one of the first comedians who did arenas.
Cool.
And the through line in that is stick with it. People won't always get it. In fact, sometimes they may never get it, and that's okay.
Mm.
Or at some point it has to be okay. You'll find out if it's because it's bad or because it's good.
Yep.
And I think what it did I think it was comforting for my soul, because it showed that so much of this and so much of the creative endeavor is about it is about perseverance.
Definitely.
And also the love of the thing. That's what he sort of talks about. What he loved so much was seeing people's faces, interacting. Like there's this whole section in the book where he talks about how he something that he ended up being revolutionary for was he led an audience out of the theater and into, I think it was like a big empty pool.
Ah,
Like
I didn't
a
know
pool
that.
that
Yeah.
had been emptied out, and he carried on the show, and it was kind of this interactive thing that just sort of happened. And he started to become known for that by word of mouth. But, you know, he followed the muse and did what he thought was fun. And what he started to lose when he started to do the big arena things was that interaction with the audience. He, at a certain point, was just like, what I loved was the anonymity of things. You know, fame becomes is a totally different ball game. I did this, I did all the things that I did because I loved live comedy. And I basically completed live comedy, and therefore I stopped. Like that's when he stopped. So
Yeah.
it's really fascinating to see that whole journey. And for me, it was good for my soul because I went, it's, you know, Steve Martin is saying it is about the what lights you up, what makes you feel creative. And if you reach a point where it stops like being that for you, you can move on to something else.
How nice is that? And also, you know, just from an artist journey, or even just in life, keep going because, as you said, or as you implied, often we have these end goals, like I want to be selling arenas, for example, but it's about enjoying the process along the way because it doesn't just happen like that. There's a lot of perseverance as well. So did that kind of, because you said you were doing acting, you're an actor at the time, you still are an actor. Did that kind of
Yeah.
change things for you then? Like, did that give you the confidence and
I
permission?
I think so. I mean, I think at that point I still had a lot to learn, but I mean, I still have a lot to learn now, but yeah, I think it gave me permission to just keep trying, really, and to, I think a huge part of it was being unashamed of being nerdy about stuff
Yeah.
because he like he loved magic. And I'm sorry to any magicians who might be listening, but magic is before our Darren Browns and all that stuff. I'm like, yeah, magic is nerdy. But I mean,
Yep.
Darren Brown also, I don't know why he'd be listening to this, but sorry, you're also a nerd. But anyway, but I guess like, yeah, but in any case, it feels like, yeah, permission to just do find the thing that you love and do that thing and see where it takes you,
Yep.
and to be a nerd about it, and that's a huge part of it.
It's really interesting because that can be really hard. You know, let's just talk about acting because that's where you're at that time. Where, you know, you might meet friends or like school friends or your parents, like, what are you doing? And they probably expect you to have, you know, I'm the lead in this show, I'm the lead in that one. But then just, you know, when you hear someone like him, a master, to just, you can almost take a step back and go, you don't need to be the master, you don't need to be the expert, as long as you're kind of enjoying going along the journey. That'd be very freeing. And then it also, because I know I've had this struggle at times because I do screenwriting where everyone's like, so have you sold your screenplay yet? Have you done this? And you're like, oh, I wish it was that easy. And then when you hear genius advice like that, it makes you realize it's okay. People don't necessarily understand your journey and that's fine. But as long as I've got this, and I've had moments of advice like that, and that's really kept me going. So I'm wondering if it's something you think about or it's at the back of your mind. Yeah.
Definitely, I would say I nobody really knew what to do with me in LA. Like and I was in this space where I didn't have a lot of confidence. I didn't know who I was. I was trying to mold myself into what I thought they would want me to be, quote unquote, they would want me to be.
Yep.
And really what people are looking for is for you to step in and go, hey, this is me. How you doing?
Yep.
In a really grounded, simple way. And then people go, oh, I know who that is. I know what's happening. And I didn't have that. I guess Steve Martin's book and all that Oh, and also I was someone who was told, oh, you'll be a successful actress when you're older,
Oh, that's
or like
interesting.
things will become clearer for you when you're older. And of course, when I'm in my mid 20s, I'm going, but I want it now. And
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
but yeah, and I would say um, that his journey, reading that did keep me going. But also, as I have gone into things that I never thought I would, like I trained as an opera singer and now I use my voice as a professional voiceover artist. I couldn't have predicted that at the time that I stopped being a voice, stopped pursuing opera. I thought, well, that's it. I'll never really use my voice professionally, this, that, whatever. And the opposite is true. And then
That's cool.
also,
Yeah.
yeah, and with I never thought I'd be a stand-up comedian, but I was fresh out of drama school from the UK, and I came to London and really learned who I was and what my strengths were and what I needed to work on when I moved to London and was lucky enough to go to drama school. I feel like I couldn't have predicted why I kept pursuing what I was pursuing. Why did I keep pursuing acting? Why did I do stand up? Why why would I bother with improv comedy? And then there are certain things that happen where I end up on the set of Armando Iannucci's Avenue 5,
Mm.
where you've got improv acting. I didn't have to do any singing or anything, but I go, oh, being on the set of one of the greatest television directors and writers, comedy writers ever, I have tools that are going to help me feel comfortable here. I don't feel completely comfortable here,
Yeah.
but I can chart back to all of those times I was asking, why am I interested? Why am I still pursuing acting? Why am I still bashing myself over the head with following this creative life? And then you have a moment where it coalesces and you go, oh, that's why. And it'll be a fleeting moment in the
Mm.
midst of all your other worries where you're going, but you just go, oh, that's why I was doing this. So I could be comfortable in this feeling like seemingly pretty huge situation.
Yes.
Yeah, that's why you keep going. And that's, I think, just to, reference Steve Martin again, like that was one thing that became clear in his book. He's like, I don't know why I was doing all this stuff. It just so happened that eventually it clicks and you go, oh, that's why.
That's so cool because, I was an accountant, and then some of the accounting has helped with what I'm doing here. And people are like, why have you done that? I've done a lot of health courses, and all of that has helped make me a better writer. But at the time, you're like, I did an accounting degree. Or maybe you were thinking, oh, I don't want to put words in your mouth. Why did I want to be an opera singer? And then,
Yeah.
it comes in all these things. So when you had that moment, which is beautiful, you expressed that so beautifully. When you had that moment at Avenue 5, we are like, this is why I've done everything. Were you following your intuition? What was it that was guiding you? Like, obviously you did these things because you wanted to.
Well, I mean, and also I did those things because there were people who gave me permission to do them. There's something about what is it? Luck is preparation meets opportunity,
Mm.
and that's what that felt like. And I think at that point, I think what I struggle with is when somebody gives me that permission, that opportunity, I immediately go, oh, I'm not ready, or I can't do that, or I don't know what that is. And I do think that everyone, whatever they're being offered, feels that
Yeah.
in some way. Some people more than others. There are going to be, sure, some really confident people out there who are just like, yeah, this is my time. Sometimes I am that confident person, and other times I'm not. But I think it's like working with the ebb and flow. And I think when I was in that situation, I I ran the gamut of feeling like, yeah, I definitely belong here, to, oh, I'm not ready. But also, what's interesting is I got to watch incredible actors like Hugh Laurie and Rebecca Front, um, all of whom are at the top of their game, have been doing this for years. And what you realize as well is that this is a job. Like it's just, I'm going to say just a job, and I don't mean to diminish it, but Hugh Laurie is there and he's wondering when lunch is going to be. You know, he's been on set his whole life, and I haven't. And I'm expecting myself to feel comfortable in a situation I'm not used to.
Yeah.
But you look at these people, and eventually what they're doing, acting and creating and improvising on the spot, is second nature because they've had so much practice. And it's unfair of me to expect the same of myself when I'm still in process, still learning.
That's great awareness. How did you deal with that? Because you could have let the nerves get you. I know you said there were different like ups and downs. Then you're like, I can do this. You know, comparing is very natural in this industry. In fact, it's like you have to do it. Otherwise, you know, everyone does it. How did you embrace that moment?
I think a lot of that stuff came, so much of it for me, I realize I have a tendency to spill my energy out, my anxious energy out onto other people and become a caretaker. Be like, hey, do you need a cup of coffee? Do you need this? You know, you seem nervous. Are you okay?
Yep.
And in that situation, it was a lesson in set is a very busy, demanding place. And I need to make sure that I look after my energy so that when I'm on, I can do the best that I can do. That's what all these other actors are doing as well. If someone is a bit weird or off with you on set, it's because they have something else to be doing besides talking to you. Yeah. And I started to, it's like doing some breathing exercises to remind myself that, you know, I'm here right now. Taking myself away into a quiet corner if I could find one, and just reminding, getting back in touch with my body. Really, that's the simplest thing that I can say, because it's so easy to just become ungrounded and freaked out. So for me, coming back to my body and my breath is the way that I sort of recenter. Yeah.
That is a great life skill that we can apply for all situations. Is that just something you learned along the journey, or have you actively sought out, you know, breathing and, you know, helping stuff with stress?
Yeah, I was always interested in body work. I think I was lucky enough to get to do yoga in college, just hatha yoga. I had really great teachers and training. And when in my 20s, I was just introduced to all that. So I was interested in that. But also acting, my drama training, you do a lot of breath and body work. But I also suffer from anxiety. And when I experience panic attacks, it makes me feel like I can't breathe. Yeah. So I have a personal, like sort of a discordant relationship with my own breath and body. And so, I've always been really interested in breath and how it calms us, and sometimes in a scientific way, but really just like learning as I go. But it's been very, very important for me to stay present, because so much of breathing, it's like, it's so easy to let my thoughts run away and go into the doom scenarios and worst case scenarios. And like, my life is so nice. And really, I need to just remind myself, like, I'm here and I'm safe, and I'm like, nothing really bad's going to happen. I mean, I don't think too hard about that, but I'm just talking like when I'm in an arts scenario and freaking out, it's about, bringing myself back to the ground and away from the imposter syndrome thoughts. I did pranayama for a few years, and I've been a bit slack with it, but I know it's going to sound wanky, but there's something about breath. Well, I think it's the most, obviously without breath, there's death, but it just brings you straight in the moment. I've done improv, but only at like a class level. And I was getting nervous when I was doing it, especially at the start, and just doing even just like a quick few breaths when no one's looking, because you can't,
you can't necessarily like do that when you're on stage or anything, but just like before or afterwards, just some small breaths and all of the thoughts disappeared. Like they might come back later, but in that moment
Yeah.
when I'm super stressed, that breath really connected me. And I felt like my brain could kind of expand because it felt like it was being almost contracted and I couldn't get the ideas out there. So I think it's an
Yeah.
essential skill. Did you learn it to help with the panic attacks and anxiety, or it just came about naturally?
Yeah, definitely. I think in the first instance, it definitely came as a result of having panic attacks and anxiety, and then it became out of curiosity and also like learning sort of the fundamentals of yoga, knowing that asana is only one branch of it, and then you have pranayama, you have all the other things, and I know like um, just that people had spent centuries making systems to help us get in touch with ourselves. It's like,
Yep.
oh wow, yes, this breath is the thing that connects all of us. I think I found fascination through that, but yes, it primarily came through my first interactions with anxiety, panic attacks, trying to understand that. And something else I would say. So I'm an improviser and I also teach improv. And one thing I say to my students is that you know, before they start anything, remember to breathe because that's the thing that just goes away. And we expect ourselves to be able to feel the same or act the same when we're on stage. But if you remember, we are animals and we are we are human animals putting ourselves in an empty, wide open space that's really well lit. So our fight or flight is going to be
Yep.
going
Off the
off.
rockets. Yeah.
So it's we're never going to get rid of nerves, but we can learn to work with them. And I think breath is the way. Is
I
yeah.
I agree 1,000%. I've got so many more questions on body work and I'll bring up. But while you were talking about, so have you noticed that your anxiety has improved doing things like that, and with age and other experience, like what's been the relationship now?
Yeah, I think it's funny to say improved. I would say I've made more peace with it, the fact that it's
Yes.
something that is there.
Mm.
Because I think when I was younger, I thought that I need to get rid of this. I need to get rid of my anxiety. And over time and with psychotherapy and various other things, it's been a big mix of stuff, body work and talk therapy and various other things. I have come to understand that there are ways in which my anxiety helps me. There's a tipping point where it doesn't. There's a tipping point where I go into freeze, where I can't do anything. And I think yes, I've made peace with more peace, and it fluctuates day to day, but I've made more peace with it and understood, okay, this is part of my experience of life. Now it's a matter of when it's happening, can I be with it? Can I be kind to myself? Rather than, because the past pattern is, berating myself for it. Why are you like this? You shouldn't be doing this. This shouldn't be happening now. All those thoughts will still be there, but I now have a bit more space around them and go, okay, I hear that, but it is here right now. Let's see if we can just take a moment.
You have reached enlightenment because it's one to have the awareness around the negative thoughts, but in that moment, we might not even be aware. Yes, we're saying negative things, but having that other side being like, yes, this is what's happening. Okay, tell me about that because that's a long journey to be able to get there. We say so much negative stuff to ourselves that we have no idea. Sometimes we say it out loud, and then like a friend or a partner or a family member, whatever, will say, "Hey, you say this?" You're like, "What? I've been saying this for my whole life. I had no idea." So tell me, what springs to mind?
Oh, I mean, it's a constant monologue for me. I'm going, really? You never take a break? Like this negative stuff, it never takes a break. But I feel like where am I with it now? I think it's really hard to approach it. It's really hard to approach myself with compassion. I have moments where I do, um, but I feel like I guess I would think at my age now that I would be nicer to myself. And I sometimes really am, and I think I'm better at self-care practices and all this stuff. But when I'm sharing new ideas, or a show doesn't go the way or a set doesn't go the way I think it should, my initial reaction will always be, "That was terrible. You should quit." Blah blah blah. All that stuff, and then I'm able to go, "Okay, yeah, fine. You can think that, but in a day or so after it's settled, we're going to listen back to the set and we're going to see what really happened."
Oh, that's smart, because it's like, and I also do that with the podcast as well. I'm like, fuck,
Yeah,
why did I say that? And then
yeah.
like my wife will just like, what do you mean? That was just a normal thing. Like maybe you stumbled and that was it. I'm like, what is wrong with me? But then it's
Yeah,
the same
yeah.
thing. Yeah.
I'm the worst person in the world. How could I do that? And you listen back and you go, "Oh, actually, I think it was fine."
So can you tell me about that? Because as a stand-up, especially, and yes, there's the acting, there's the improv, there's the voice acting, all the bazillion things that you do, but you're going to bomb. Every single
Yeah.
person's going to, and trying a new joke, for example, even trying a joke for the 10th time, these things are natural. But if your go-to is "I should quit," it's pretty remarkable. You must be very, I don't know what the word is, but like powerful, because if you go, "I should quit," and then you're able to, after every single time that happens, go, "You know what? I shouldn't. I should keep on continuing." That's so interesting to me. So how have you, like, is it just, tell me more. There's just so much that speaks to me. I find that very exciting.
I think one of the things that I realized about stand up is one of the reasons I wanted to do it is because it is hard. Because it is so hard. And it was something that, like, I didn't grow well. I watched stand up, but my parents weren't big stand up fans. I don't know that they are now either, but like my parents were, yes, they're like, "You started doing stand up and we hate it even more." No, that's not true. But
That
I
would be
think
actually quite common.
that would be, yeah, right. They're just like, "Yeah, we liked stand up and then you started doing it." No, anyway. So I I think one of the things that's kept me going, even though I have that really harsh voice, is again remembering that it is a skill, and that if I keep at it, I will ideally just get better at the skill. I think the thing that I didn't know when I was a kid was how to practice. But that practice means embracing failure, if you will. So trying something and it not going right, and then you hopefully know what to do next time to make small improvements, but it's a matter of chipping away at it.
Yep.
And I think somewhere in there, through reading Steve Martin's book and just talking to other stand-ups, the thrill you get when something does work, or something that when something does work is enough to keep you going. And it's not always that, or like it's so much about perseverance. What was I just sort of,
Well, I can add to that. And if
yeah,
it
yeah,
springs,
please.
it's with stand up. I admire stand up so much because you can have a joke, and you think it's funny, but then maybe the first, not you, but a comedian,
Yeah,
and then you tried for the first time and it bombs. So you're like, no, there's something there. Or maybe get a few laughs, but you try it again and go, maybe a few more laughs, and you keep on trying, and it's embarrassing. Self-worth comes into play, all the other emotions. And then after a while, if you're good, it becomes a joke that you can try. But that process is brutal. There are no other art forms. And I love the resilience. There's so many emotions that come into that, also in creative and in life. But to be able to go, I back myself. Yes, it's going to change a bit or maybe a lot. But from that stage to the end, even though there's no real end, is remarkable. And I find it very inspiring. I don't know if that helps, but tell me what
no,
you...
I think stand up is the only art form. I can't remember who said this recently, but Stand-up is the only art form where you do your dress rehearsal in front of the audience every single time.
Yep.
And that's also part of what fascinated me, because I'm someone who, having studied opera and, I did theater when I was a kid and all this stuff, you show the audience your finished product. Stand-up is the opposite of that. Stand-up in so many people's minds is like a quote-unquote lower art form. I mean,
Really?
I'm not sure that's entirely true.
Yeah.
I guess relative to my very lovely, well-to-do German grandparents, I don't think
Yeah.
that stand-up
There's also
is,
like a cultural thing. Like I've heard a lot of families talk. This is stereotypical, so everyone relax. But like the Germans, like, that is a joke. That is, I can't do the accent, but that
well,
they're like,
this is not funny, and we should have improved it. And you're like, Grandma, I'm trying to make you laugh.
they're like,
yeah.
I wish
It
I could
is-
do the accent, but yeah.
I can't really, and I should be ashamed. I should be able to speak German, but that's a whole other thing. Anyway, I think the point I was trying to get to is that one of the things that fascinated me about stand-up is, as a perfectionist, I'm going, oh, you really fall flat on your face when it bombs, but also it's the only art form, or I shouldn't say it's the only art form. I'm speaking in real certain terms now, but if it doesn't work, you get immediate feedback, and usually you get immediate feedback about why.
Yeah.
You can go back and go, oh, I should have said this word, or that word should go at the end of the punchline because that's the joke. Most of the time, when something bombs, it's not because the idea is bad, it's because it's not clear.
Yes.
That's what I would say. If the audience doesn't know why you're saying it or what you're saying, they're not going to get it. They're not going to go along with you. And as with most things, for me, my writing process is start out with a lot of words in some order and then trim it down, trim it down, trim it down, trim it down. I'm doing this in process for my show right now.
Amazing.
My director is going, yeah, great idea. We got to trim it down. That's it.
It's the same with screenwriting as well, where I'll add in like a scene that's triple as long because I just want to get out what I think the words would be. Because you never see in a movie, you'd know this, but you never see in a movie, hi, how are you? I'm good. You start midway. But I want to see how the whole scene's going to be, and then I can adjust. But the first movie I wrote was like 250 pages. Obviously, that's ridiculous. Yeah, I know it's embarrassing. Now I've cut it to like, yeah, I mean, I'm proud of it, but still.
I'm proud of you. I'm proud of you. It's great.
Thank you. I've now cut it to 150 and it is tight. And 150, for people that don't realize, that is a ridiculous amount still. I think like a movie is like 90 to 120.
Yes.
I've been cutting this one. My other screenplay, like my TV shows are like, around the 23 mark, the 30 page mark. Generally a minute a page. But this one, I'm like, I'm getting straight to it. And it's an amazing skill. Not that I have it or I'm trying to get it, where to cut and get there as quickly as possible, the shortest amount of words. It's kind of, it's fun and exciting, but it's also, it can be a bit of a brutal process in there.
Oh, it's hard to kill your darlings, man. Like it's just, it's difficult. And there are things that I've said on stage. Oh God. One of the first half an hour sets I ever did. My friend Jerry was in the audience and he came up afterward and I was speaking about my sexuality. So felt quite close to the bone. And I'm not sure I was entirely ready to speak about it. But anyway, I did my set. I did my 30-minute set. And my friend Jerry came up afterward. I was like, hey, thank you so much for coming. Do you have any thoughts? And he grabbed me by the shoulders and he went, it was a really nice speech, my love. It needs some jokes. And these are people who are very helpful because you're going,
advice.
Oh, yes. The audience wants to feel looked after. They want to know that you're okay to talk about whatever you're talking about. And for God's sake, especially as a stand-up, make them laugh.
Yes, because I'm sure you know this better than anyone. Like I've seen a lot of stand up over the years, but when you think, and it's not part of the act, where you're like, well, this person is genuinely either very nervous or they're not confident in what they're talking about, or you can tell it's a topic they're not quite ready to talk about, and that doesn't mean don't talk about the topic. It can take you out of it so much, and then I go into, you said the caretaker. I go to the caretaker like, are they okay? And you can't enjoy the comedy. And also, so many comedians have said to me, and I don't necessarily have an opinion on this, but you're not there necessarily for TED Talks. Yes, you can have a greater meeting, and that's great, but you're there for stand-up comedy. And that kind of also changed my perspective. I thought, maybe you can just get up and say like a nice speech, but people can read a blog, or you know what I mean. There was right. When I did improv, they would sometimes let us do like a minute or 2 minutes of like a speech, and some of us would do stand-up. And this one guy, and I'm still scarred by it today.
Oh, no.
He was just supposed to talk about like some topic. He somehow went on to, and I feel for the guy. I'm not judging him. I'm just probably not the right environment. Oh boy. So he spoke about like how his parents like had a brutal divorce and his dad doesn't love him and only calls him on his birthday, and he couldn't stop. And we're like, stop talking, just like in the seat. And he's like, yeah, my dad. And then my dad forgot my birthday, and it's the only time he called. And it was just getting like worse and worse and worse. And the teacher froze. So I hope you're not this. I know you're not this type of teacher. The improv teacher's like, what do I do? What do I do? And it went on for like 10 minutes. It was only supposed to be like a minute or two. And then everyone just looked at him. It was just like silent for like what felt like a minute. He's like, okay, let's get into the improv, everyone. And I'm like,
no.
Yeah.
It's nightmares. I mean, the thing is with improv, well, with comedy and performance in general, I mean, I think there's a wonderful element of storytelling in it, but we have to remember that it's a performance. Like that finding that balance is tricky. Like you said, all stories, if there's a story you want to tell and a topic you want to talk about oh my gosh, please do. Yep. And then for performance, the trick is how do I look after myself and how do I look after my audience?
That's great. Everyone just thinks about the audience, but you're also the person performing, and you're going to perform it many times. That's a great point.
Because there's going to be things that you're not ready to talk about. I know there were things in some of my very first shows that I tried to talk about, and I was not ready. And over time, again, this is where the editing thing comes in. I started with a speech that was fairly dramatic and maybe sad. And when it actually came to what I would present for a show, it was about 10 minutes and it was full of jokes. But that's because I'm writing for the medium, right? Yeah. And it takes, for me, there are so many topics that I maybe would want to attack, that I would want to approach, but my comedy skills aren't good enough yet to approach them. Like I'm still learning how do you talk about difficult things? And I don't necessarily want to talk about difficult things, but yeah, how do I talk about something that might be sad and make sure that I'm taking care of it and my audience is as well? I feel like Mike Birbiglia is really great at
that. He's a master in that. I think that's great self-awareness, and also realizing that, you are a good comedian, you're growing, and also that process of when you're writing it all out, it might not be funny at all, but that's also a process to kind of get it out as well. And then you add the jokes. I'm just even talking about like on your laptop or whatever your process is, because then you're kind of doing the work with how you feel about it. And then you might not present the entire essay, but that's a great process to kind of get it out on paper. But I also want to go...
everybody, don't put out the entire essay unless it's a blog.
And you've got a very unique outlook on this, and I've got a quote of yours. The context was, I don't know if you had just done your first stand-up course, but regardless, it still works. But being bad this early on made me want to keep on doing it and see if I would get better. And I think that's remarkable. This is early on in your journey. You're a top comedian now. But it's very rare, like as we've, stated, often when we try something And, you know, you mentioned when you're earlier on that perhaps you didn't have the skills to realize that you can actually try something and fail at it. But having that awareness that you weren't great at it at the start would scare off 99.9% of people. But what's so, I said earlier on, I didn't say now. What's so funny?
Oh, I mean, I laugh because I go, oh my God, yeah. I mean, I have moments where I go, why did I keep going?
Yeah.
And there are some times when I think, oh, maybe stand up isn't the medium for me. And other times when I feel the exact opposite. I feel like the being also, this is important to say, being bad can be so funny. Like, one of my favorite things, and one of the things I miss about being on the circuit, like it was when I started out, is that when you're starting out as a comedian, at least in London, which is where I did it, I've never done stand up in the States, but you know, in London, you're up there, you have your little comedy cohort, your friends, your buds who you end up gigging with regularly at open mics and bringer gigs and all sorts of stuff. And when you get up there and you try a joke that doesn't work, you will hear no one in the audience laugh, but you will hear some of your friends cackling. And it's so nice. It's so funny because these are people who are going, dude, we know you were trying something and it really didn't work. And we're so glad that you tried it.
Yeah.
It's the best thing in the world. And I think that is part of the reason why I kept going. And that also, those little tiny incremental steps of getting better for me are satisfying enough to keep me going. I think I used to think, oh, I've got to make these big leaps. I don't think I'm a big leap person. I think I'm a little by little person. There are some of those people who will start stand up and skyrocket, and God bless them. With so many of my creative endeavors, I have never been that person who just does something and is automatically like straight to the top. And I'm a little by little person, and that is satisfying to me. Sometimes it's extremely frustrating, but right, you know, as I sit here now, I go, no, that's satisfying. That's what I'm doing, little by little.
Great awareness, but I'd also argue that 99.9% of people are like that as well. There's very few people that just, you know, get up, you know, God sends them the lines and then they blow up and they're doing arenas. No one's like that. But
yeah, it's true. It's true. And there are people, I think, again, perception is everything, isn't it? We have the perception. I mean, I know some people, some really wonderful people who started comedy and then 6 months later they're on TV and doing tours and all this stuff. And if you speak to that person, the stress is unbelievable. And the imposter syndrome is even more because they didn't have months and years and failures on the circuit. They're now opening for, you know, some big name comedian and feeling like, I don't think I should be here. Like it's grass is always greener for sure.
it's interesting. I had like one guest from Australia. He was on this massive TV show where he was the host of like a stand-up show where they would do. This was when he first started as well. And he talked about imposter syndrome. And this was our big show in Australia. And he said after that, because everyone thought he was like the biggest name almost, he didn't say this, but he was like, what people thought he was one of the biggest names. That was kind of overwhelming in the sense. I won't add words to what he said. People can listen to the podcast, but then having to, you know, tour when he didn't even, you know, he didn't have an hour and people are thinking he's like the big headliner. And that can be like really, sometimes we can grow too fast. So I like that you kind of give yourself permission or awareness to realize, you know, I'm going at a pace that's good for me and maybe it'll change. Maybe I'll go faster. Maybe I'll go slower. Maybe it'll stay the same. But at the moment it's working for you. That's great awareness, especially in the comparison game, which is so natural.
I mean, an hour of comedy and making a solid hour is so hard. It is so hard. And there are people out there who are doing it so well. And I would say like doing my first hour in 2023, I came out of it going, okay, that's the format I'm working in now, I suppose. I need to get better at this format. But in the same thing, like when I did Edinburgh for the very first time, I was doing a split bill with my friend Louise Bastock, and we had a half an hour each. And I rocked up to Edinburgh going, I'm going to come out of here with an amazing half hour of comedy. And I came out with 5 minutes of really solid stuff, like really solid. I came out learning, knowing, okay, now I know how to put together a really slick 5 minutes. And then you grow into doing 10s and 15s and 20, and you just learn the format. Doing a 20-minute set is a totally different ball game to doing an hour.
Yeah.
And like and you'll know that from screenwriting, writing a TV show, an episodic versus writing a feature,
Yep.
completely different medium, completely different ball game. So I'm like, yeah, I'm writing my second hour now. It feels strong in parts, and I know in other parts it doesn't. The self-doubt is real, and what it feels like I'm learning now is the process. How do I keep going in those huge moments of doubts where I go, oh, I shouldn't be doing this at all.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll say a few things, so that's exciting. People don't realize sometimes when you see your comedian do your favorite comedian do like their bit, a great bit, it's like 1 minute on Instagram. And yes, it might take longer. That's 1 minute, and that has taken so long to get there. And then maybe there's a 5 minute bit, but that 5 minute bit's probably a few jokes, compiled. And so that's great awareness. And then it's you guys have got a similar like model to us. We have the Melbourne Comedy Festival, which is huge, and you're doing the Edinburgh Fringe, which we'll talk about. To get that hour is so hard, and often if you do it every year, you've only got the 1 year, and that blows my mind because you still need to do it well, but to get that type of material, I don't know how comedians do it. It genuinely blows my mind.
Yeah, I mean, I did my first hour in 2023, and prior to that, I did two split bills, and then I did a 45-minute work in progress, and
nice.
then I did. But I'm going, that first hour of mine is the culmination of all the work I've ever done in stand-up ever.
Yeah.
And the amount of pressure that people put on what's called the debut hour in Edinburgh, the amount of pressure that, this is my big introduction to the world, the pressure is crazy. And it took me that long to get there. And then the year after, so 2024, I didn't do the Fringe because I thought I need a break. And also, if I go in and write another hour for 2024 to go up to Edinburgh in 2024, I'm just going to write an hour of stand-up comedy about how hard stand-up comedy is. And nobody wants to see that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry, what I was just going to say is often they say as an author, the second book's the hardest because you've been thinking about the first book for years. Yeah. What springs to mind?
That's where I am right now. And I think there was material, I feel like there's always a show going on in the background of the show that you're working on. So there was material coming up during when I was doing my show in 2023 that I was like, oh, okay, I guess I'll just jot that down for later, or show ideas and various other things that would come up. And then I finished, and I really struggled to decide, okay, I'm definitely not going to do Edinburgh in 2024. I think I had moments where I was like, I'm going to do it. And then I decided against it because it felt like, oh, the second hour somehow needs to be even better, or I need to improve. But what I'm so what I'm realizing in this process is, again, it's process. It's easier for me. It feels more achievable for me to go, this is me learning the form and doing it better. This is me learning how to put together an hour again, knowing what I know now from the last one.
Yes.
So it's like, rather than going, it's got to be the best show I've ever made. It's like, well, it might not be, but it will be a show that you have made. And I think in a way when I hear myself say it out loud, I go, oh, that sounds kind of boring. But process itself is actually boring. The fun part for me is when I've done all the work and then I get to perform the show with the ease of knowing what the format is, knowing what the jokes are, knowing what the beats are. That's the fun part.
That's such a great take. And I've had a lot of comedians say that not every show, in life, like I was an accountant. So we think I'm going to be a junior, then a senior, then a manager, blah, 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 blah. But it doesn't work like that. And I've had so many comedians, 15 plus years, and they say not every year is as good as the previous one. However, they grew and learnt a lot more and they improved. However, the nature of comedy, might not be as funny as the previous year, but you're always growing and learning, so your base becomes stronger. So if you're like a pyramid or the foundation of a house, that foundation is so essential. So you're learning all the crucial bits that you'll carry on for the rest of your life. So I think that's so important. That goes into process as well. So important.
I remember I watched Lou Saunders, and she, I saw her in 2023, and I was watching her, and she's so effortlessly herself and so easy. And I watched her show and I loved the show. And more than the show, I was like, I love her. I love that she is on stage and so comfortable seeming. Maybe on the inside, it's not that way, but on the outside, anything the audience said, she rolled with, she incorporated, she still was on track with her show. And I know that what I learned more than anything in 2023 doing my show, Geriatric Millennial, was that I'm learning the craft of how to be on stage for an hour and hold the room and roll with the punches. And what is it like to have an audience that's really game one day and then the next day they're super quiet, but then at the end of the show, they see you and they've been quiet the whole time. And then they see you at the door and they go, that was amazing. We loved it. And you're thinking, why didn't you laugh? That's like
you should
going
get that
through
as
all
a
that
shirt.
stuff.
Yeah.
Please laugh. But
Yeah.
but also they don't have to. They don't have to laugh to enjoy the show. And so like watching Lou Saunders, I kind of went, that quality of just being able to relax or to just sit back and really be in your body and in yourself and roll with the punches. I'm like, that's what I'm after. Yes, I want to be a good stand-up, but so many of the stand-ups that I admire are just effortlessly, quintessentially themselves, really. Maybe a heightened performed version of themselves, but they're and they seem to be enjoying it.
Yeah.
That's my partner when he watches the show of mine, and I'll be like, I'm not sure how that went. And he'll say, when you're enjoying it, we're enjoying it. And that's great advice. It's true.
Oh, I've got so many points. I want to pigeonhole that because
Yeah.
I think I read about 10 points, but from the doubts, you said that there are moments where you're like, why should I continue or how do I move forward? You are moving forward. So what allows you to kind of put pen to paper? Like, what have you been able to do?
I think I've done, and maybe other people have mentioned this, but I years ago had a copy of The Artist's Way on my shelf.
Oh my, okay.
Yeah.
You're the fourth person to bring it up in the last month. And each time I say I'm going to read it and I have it by my bed. Okay, universe, I hear it. Continue.
Yeah, and I have to say, it's one of those books that I had on my bookshelf for about 3 or 4 years. Somebody recommended it to me and I was like, yeah, I'll pick it up. And I saw, it's a 12-step program. I'm not doing that. And then at a certain point when I was open to it, I'm from California, all that sort of universe stuff really resonates with me. But even if it doesn't, like there are certain, with listeners, there are certain things that will come into your life when you're open to it. And so I read The Artist's Way, did it years ago, and she has a follow-on book, and I've done it a few times, and I do think that book is the reason why I have the perseverance that I have, because it is all about little by little, but also nurturing the creative, just creativity in general.
Yep.
So there's the business of the business, and then there's creativity. Those things run alongside each other. Sometimes they meet, but often not. So it's like, I am a creative person living a creative life. And no matter the success of my shows or the failure of my shows, I will still be creative. I will still be a creative person. And so I think that's a huge reason why I've kept going. She has a follow-on book. It's written by Julia Cameron, in case I didn't say that. She has a follow-on book called Walking in This World. That's a bit of a gentler follow-on book from The Artist's Way once you finished it. And I did that, and I feel like that's part of the reason why I was able to be open to creating a second show, because you do morning pages, which is like a brain drain. Get all those negative thoughts. I mean, not even negative, all sorts of thoughts. Like, I got to go to the doctor today. I don't want to go,
Yeah.
all the way to sometimes writing jokes in the morning. So like,
Cool.
It leads on. Just 3 pages of longhand really helps me. And I feel like I have over my years of being a performer, I know that I have to look after myself, because this is hard. That I'm a very privileged person. I live a very privileged life, but I would say creativity and choosing a creative path is hard, and we have to find ways to be kind to ourselves so that we keep going.
Agreed. You're going to write your book, and I appreciate you bringing her up, because I need to hear it as well. And going back to what you said about success, and I've got a quote of yours, but going back to your first Edinburgh show, how rewarding, you do the 30 minutes, you split it with the lady, I've forgotten her name.
Yeah, Louise Bastock, yeah.
And you implied success, and I've got a quote from Catherine Bohart, and just advice she gave you. But you say one of the most helpful things she said was to define what success in Edinburgh meant to me. Because in Edinburgh, we think, you might get the award and you're going to be the top name, and we can have all types of high expectations, which can be a great thing. But sometimes success can just be, how did I feel on stage? Could I keep eye contact? Whatever your version of success. So how did that land for you when you heard something like that?
Oh, I mean, Catherine was such a huge help to me for finding clarity around what it was I actually wanted. I would be remiss if I said, I think it's important that we dream, and that we dream big, and that you say, oh, maybe it could be me.
Agreed.
Who wins the award and does all that stuff. I think that's so important. And also, if you're not doing that, like, just let yourself do that. And it's really important to know what success means to me, because when I inevitably, and I'm not, regardless of what happens, I can find a way to be disappointed about it.
We're all human. No.
Right? It's so funny. You go, oh, this thing happened, and I really wanted it to happen, and you're just like, oh, but actually, it's really hard, or it wasn't doesn't feel how I thought it would feel. But I think the defining what success for me, especially around Edinburgh, defining what success is for me was so important, because it is this big cranking machinery, and it is very easy to get distracted by everything that's happening for everybody else and forget that the most important thing, or I'll say for me, the most important thing for me in Edinburgh is that I am giving myself, self-funded, the opportunity to perform my show 22, 24 times in a row.
Cool.
In order to build my craft. That's what I'm there for. And if I manage to perform the show every day and not, I think I've had to pull shows before, but I didn't in 2022 and I didn't in 2023.
Oh, cool.
I was like, And actually, success to me also means whatever happens, even if one person shows up and you say, hey, you're the only audience member, would you still like me to do the show? And they say yes, then you perform that. I perform that
Nice.
like I would to anyone else. Those are my goals. I don't always feel great about it. I don't always have the best attitude about it. But for me, I'm going, what's important? It's the people in the room on the day and me doing the best that I can with what I have on that day. That is success to me.
Brilliant. I love that. And you implied that you weren't as self-assured in LA than when you moved to England. So what kind of like changed the game? It sounds like you became more confident of yourself. You started stand up, for example, and yeah.
Yeah, I think going to drama school in the UK was helpful for me. I was living out a few dreams. I'd always wanted to go to drama school. I wanted to make use of my dual US UK citizenship. Los Angeles, I love it. It's a wonderful place, and it can be very difficult because it's so image based.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think for it's difficult for everybody, but I think being a woman in the industry at that time, I mean, would I even say I was in the industry? I was sort of on the outskirts dreaming about being an actor. And I just didn't have the self-confidence. Moving to England, going to drama school, and one of the things that my drama school did for me was they said, look, this is a lifelong endeavor. Learn acting and the craft and all of that. This is a lifelong learning endeavor. We are offering you a menu of things to choose from, a menu of ways in, and then your job is to carry it on afterward. And so I feel like
That's
England
good
and
advice.
the culture gave me, because people go into drama school as well going, I'm going to come out of here with an agent and I'm going to immediately get jobs and all that. That does happen for some people.
Yeah.
It does. But I knew going in, because I was working in accountancy firms when I was in Los Angeles and doing day jobs, and I always knew that I would have to have a second job if I wanted to pursue a creative career. That's not true for everybody, but it certainly was true for me. I went into drama school a little bit older, and knowing that when I got out of drama school, I'd have to go back to an office and make my creative endeavors work.
Yeah.
But there's something as well about the English, or I should say the British culture of just try something and see how it goes. And if it's crap, it's crap. There's like, there's, I don't know, there's the live comedy circuit and the live comedy culture. It enables people to try stuff. And it's been a big old workshop for me, in a
Cool.
really great, a lower pressure workshop, where I feel like in the United States, for me anyway, and in Los Angeles, I was too afraid to workshop stuff. I was too afraid to get on stage and mess up, even improv out there.
Yeah.
I did classes, and everyone is in like top shape, and they're all funny and they're all pretty to look at, and I'm standing there going, I need to learn stuff. I'm not ready to go. I'm not packaged and ready to be sold. And so, yeah, Britain afforded me the chance to workshop stuff. And yeah, continues to.
That's amazing, because I know that when you first did Groundlings, you mentioned like confidence, and as you said, everyone like being like supermodels and like being like Chris Hemsworth from Australia. But you said that it was really good because it showed you excellence, and it can be a really intimidating environment where everyone's there putting their hand up for Saturday Night Live, and sometimes it doesn't allow us to shine. But at least like planted the seed in you. Then you've come to England, and you've seen excellence, but you can do it in your way. I think that's pretty cool as well. It's actually awesome to do it.
Well, yeah, and that's the thing, is that, and I hope it didn't come across as me saying that I haven't seen excellence in the UK. There is the most extraordinary talent here, just as there is in Australia and the US as well. And I think it just there was something a bit more raw and realistic about being in the UK. People are Los Angeles is a very polished place
Yeah.
because it's the Super Bowl of entertainment. Like it is. Of course everybody's polished. And London is similar. Like there's, yeah, but I guess it's just it's been such a gift for me to be somewhere else that is not where I grew up, really. I think
Yes.
that's a huge part of what I'm saying.
And
Yeah.
and finding areas for you to thrive, because not all environments are right for the individual. And as
That's
you
right.
said, so you can thrive in potentially, and who knows, maybe you go to LA and you thrive there. But I know, like when
Yeah.
I first started improv at the one school I went to, which was great, I wasn't ready. But I learned skills from watching other people, and I was horrific. Then I went to another improv school, and my skills greatly improved because I was maybe a higher maturity, or I was taking on those lessons, and then I became a much better improviser through that. But I just needed to go to a different environment to help me, thrive and foster my skills.
And that is, I couldn't have said it better myself. It's like, in fact, I didn't say it better
No, I
myself.
was going to say you said it better.
No, but I did not say it better.
You did.
But no, that's exactly it. I needed a change in environment. There will be that was the thing. I was also more mature, old enough, ready to receive whatever I was ready to receive. And like I looked at people in Los Angeles. When I was doing classes at the Groundlings, it was when Melissa McCarthy was in the Sunday Company,
Oh,
and
God.
so was Michaela Watkins, and I would watch them and just be like, oh my God, how do you do that?
Mm.
And now I still have an idea, but I also still have no idea how they do it. But I'm closer to it. I'm closer to it now than I've ever been,
Oh,
and
nice.
it's just been little by little. I don't know. Um, Nobody really has the answer to the path, but I do think that giving yourself more time and a change of scenery can be incredibly useful. Yeah, and I feel really lucky that I was able to have a change of scenery.
I agree. And I think that's also really important because a lot of people think, especially at groundlings, if I'm not good at the groundlings, then I'm never going to make it. And this is a great example of
True.
you can make it in your own way as well. And,
Yeah.
talking about from the perseverance side, I think this is important to, wrap up a few points. When you're working in I think it was like an accountancy firm that you befriended, or you had like kind of like a mentor or a father figure. I forget what his name is. Someone
Oh, yeah.
Goldstein, maybe.
Yeah, Barry Goldstein.
Barry
Yeah.
Goldstein, big fan of Barry. And he invited you to lunch one day and you met a top voiceover artist. Can you tell me a bit about this? Because there's a great story.
Yes. I met Maurice LaMarche, who is the voice of Morbo on Futurama. He's the voice of Brain on Animaniacs, Pinky and the Brain. So for Americans, it's like, yeah, people know who Maurice LaMarche is without knowing who Maurice LaMarche is.
He's done
But
so many.
yeah, he's done so
And
much
Kif,
stuff.
is it Kif in Futurama? I've
I
had the
think
whole
so,
cast
yeah.
of Futurama,
Yeah.
but I'll get him.
He,
But yeah.
he does so, and he also does Calculon in Futurama, I
Ah,
think.
yeah, that's my favorite character of all
Yeah,
time.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Calculon is great. So, for whatever reason, and also this is LA. LA gave me a lot of gifts. I love Los Angeles, but this is one of them. I'm working in this accountancy firm as an executive assistant, and Barry took me to lunch, and which was very kind, and we met his friend Maurice LaMarche, and we get to talking, and I didn't know who he was, and then Barry sort of said, yes, he works on all these shows in animation, and at one point, Maurice looked at me and said, you have a really lovely voice. You should do voiceover. And I honestly, my jaw dropped, my heart leapt. I was like, you've got to be kidding me. I have never wanted to hear anything more in my life because I grew up with animation, loving animation, obsessed with The Simpsons, always in the back of my brain curious about how that all happens. And then for someone like Maurice Marsh to go like, you should do voiceover, I was like, what? This is
Yeah, it's
amazing.
amazing.
And it is him saying that is I think one of the reasons, if not the reason, that after drama school, rather than focusing all my energy on acting, when I got out of drama school in the UK, I focused on voiceover. And voiceover has been so wonderful for me. And it is a passion, and I love it so much. And now I'm at a point where I'm not working in offices anymore, and voiceover, it's what looks after
Cool.
me. It's what takes care of the bills, which is fabulous.
Yeah.
Um, and but it all started from a little nugget of um, curiosity, and then someone saying, "Hey, you should you should do this." And then again, it's little by little. Like it's taken me years to get here. And stand-up comedy, weirdly, I couldn't have predicted this, but stand-up comedy is also one of the things that helped progress my voiceover career.
Oh, okay. Can you tell me,
Yeah.
because more
Well,
confidence in self, or you did voices on
well,
stage?
it was that I did. That was the thing, is that doing voices, accents, being an American in the UK, I automatically stick out when I speak. And I think that's part of the reason why I've had some success as a voiceover artist in the UK, is because I don't have the same accent as everybody else. That's important to point out. But I think
But
when I would,
also on that, allowing yourself, sorry for interjecting,
no, no,
the
please.
maturity of where you're at, giving yourself permission to, thrive in a different environment. I think that
Yeah,
came with taking ownership, because potentially, for what you're saying, if it was when you first started in LA and you had a British accent, perhaps you wouldn't have been able to take advantage of it. So that's cool by you.
exactly. No, it's absolutely right, Michael. I completely agree. It's about being owning what I am rather than trying to be something different. And so when I would do stand-up sets, I mean, it all had a kind of a knock-on effect. I was in a heat for the Funny Women um, competition in Edinburgh in 2019, and I did a set, and I did all my voices and did all that
Cool.
stuff. And I had a voiceover agent at the time, but I did that set, and there was a different voiceover agent in the office,
Oh, wow. In
in
the
the
crowd.
theater,
Yeah.
and she contacted me, and I ended up changing agents as a result of that. And so, like my I've had a lot of things happen that I couldn't have predicted in voiceover as the result of comedy. And I've had lots of lovely people help me along the way with voiceover, but I couldn't have foreseen the changes in my voiceover career would come from stand up.
That's so cool. And also, you mentioned the word gift, how, having a lunch
Mm.
changed your life. Because, I think that all the accountants would go out. You didn't need to go, but, you put yourself out there. You went out, probably quite male dominated. You did it, and it's changed your life. That's really cool for saying yes to the universe. Isn't that crazy? It started, I know it didn't start because I think you also did voices with your brother when you were younger, but I'm
Yeah.
sure that was a major catalyst. And perhaps maybe you wouldn't have done voiceover acting just through a moment like that. I love hearing stories like that. Before we go, we've spoken about your Edinburgh show a little bit, but now this is your first time doing it solo, I believe, which is very exciting. It's called Nice. How are we feeling for it?
I'm feeling really excited, I have to say, because it's my second solo hour, and it has been a creative challenge to keep going. But I had a really lovely preview in Cambridge this weekend,
Oh,
and
nice.
I can feel how much the show has grown. My director is the comedian Heidi Regan, and she has just been so helpful. And I'm excited because I think the show is a nice show. I try to avoid talking about politics, and I don't necessarily achieve it, but it's still a nice show.
Yep.
Still a really nice show, and I can just feel um, I just really enjoyed the audience, and I'm so excited to get to Edinburgh to perform it every day. I just think it's going to be a lot of fun, and it will be just more solidified. And I would say, like, it's been tricky to try to enjoy the process of creating a show. But I feel now that, because it's my second hour, I'm more aware of the peaks and valleys of process. So I'm able to go, this is just the period of time where you think it's a waste of time. There's going to be another period of time where you think this is the best thing you've ever done. And you'll have all the emotions in between. And that's just part of the process. So, yeah, that's where I am with it
and
right now.
people probably also don't realize performing in Edinburgh, for example, I think like one of the times you're with 5 people, you have one bathroom, you flyer, you're exhausted, the pressure of ticket sales, all of that. And actually, I found this hilarious. I had to include it in my notes, but in one of the articles you wrote about how just, your experience in Edinburgh, and they asked you, what's one piece of advice to live by? And you said, never fly next to a magician. Can you tell me? That stood out. I've been thinking about that for a while. Oh.
Never flyer next to a magician. It is the most
and they're like,
infuriating
and then it comes up there. Yeah. Or
yes, so again, this was my first year in Edinburgh. It was 2018. There was, and my friend Louise Bastock and I did the same flyering route every day. We would separate and then we'd meet again next to Bristow Square, and we would flyer. And every day, we would see this man. I don't remember obviously he was flyering for his own show, and it's good that I don't remember his name. But every day we would walk up, and he would do this thing where he wouldn't have the flyer in his hand, and then all of a sudden he would whip one out and clap it. Like it was like a click or a flick on the flyer, and he would say magic, and
that's a great sell.
And he would and he interrupted us so many times when we were trying to flyer other people. And so, yes, that is where the advice comes from. Never flyer next to a magician, because you will lose. You will lose that battle.
That is great life advice. And last 2 questions on that. If everyone's interested, so check out the links in the episode notes. Your tour dates and tickets are there. 2 questions. So 1, why is the show called Nice?
It's called Nice because I just wanted to make a nice show, and I'm a nice person, but the facade is cracking a little bit. So it's really about how can I hold the facade together?
That's great.
Can I hold it together? Yeah.
And how do you want to feel during and after your shows?
Oh, during my shows, I want to feel, I want to feel connected and like I'm having fun. I want to feel connected to myself and my audience. I want to feel like I'm having fun. And after my shows, I want to feel like I have shared something with people.
And to wrap up the podcast, let's do a quick rapid fire segment. So the first thing that springs to mind, I'm not going to comment on them because I'll derail them. Actually, this could be a good one. This wasn't initially in the list, but I believe you saw a cranial osteopath, and that changed things for you. I'm a big fan. Tell me how it changed things for you.
Oh my gosh. I mean, I thought I was experiencing severe back pain, so much so that I had to do like 3 hours of physio to get up and be able to walk. And I was teaching classes at that time, teaching young people performing arts classes. And so mobility, was key. So I had tried everything. Physio, I didn't try, but I felt like I had tried everything, and I'd gone to the National Health Service and they said, we don't know what to do. Go to a physio. So I did that. Anyway, I was walking down the street and I saw a cranial osteopath in my neighborhood, and I went, you know what? I don't know what it is, but I'm going to try it. And I went in there and I was on her table for 45 minutes, and I had not gone from debilitating back pain to feeling about 90% better in one session. And I don't know how she did it. It was like healing hands, but I was an immediate convert. And through that, I also found out that one of the reasons I had horrible back pain was because I'm dairy and gluten intolerant. And so it all followed on from that. It absolutely changed the game for me.
I think that that's so important. I know I said I wouldn't comment, but with the inflammation, I know that I get a sore spine, which impacts my thoracic if I have, and I still do it. I'm an idiot. But if I have gluten, for example, and
Yeah.
did that change things for you? Because I'll just preface this. I studied kinesiology and I got into osteopathy, and I was about to do that type of osteopathy, but I did kinesiology, long story short. But and I thought it was all rubbish. But my dad had like disc issues and he couldn't walk at one stage. He was like bedridden. Saw a kinesiologist and he could get up and walk. I'm like, what the hell? And it has literally changed my entire life because I'm like, this is the biggest load of shit. And now I'm like, wow, why don't we learn this stuff? So did it
I
have
know.
a similar impact?
Oh, huge impact. And also, like, one of the things I struggled with when I was training to be an opera singer was heartburn and acid reflux. And from the osteopath being like, I think you might have an issue with dairy. And I was like, what are you talking about? And she's like, go off it for a month and then come back on it and see what happens. And I went off dairy for a month and had it again, and immediate heartburn. And honestly, not having dairy has solved my heartburn issues, which has
Cool.
heartburn has a huge effect on your voice. And now I make my living with my voice. So all of these things, I'm like, how have I gotten here from some back pain to, yeah, it's absolutely changed the game for me.
Amazing. I'm so glad to hear that. And I just want to tie up a point. You mentioned that you wanted to be an opera singer, then alluded that you couldn't pursue it. I have like a quote where someone said that you had like vocal issues when singing. What does
Yeah.
that mean? Was it
I had vocal nodules. And that was actually from misuse and poor technique. And
interesting?
I didn't know any better. I think I had teachers who had good intentions, but they weren't the right teachers for me. And I also was just so stressed and scared all the time, and trying to force myself into being this pristine opera singer. And like, for God's sake, I'm a stand-up comedian. Give me a break. So yeah, I think I had major vocal issues. So much of them stemmed from feeling like an imposter, not being in the right medium, not really enjoying myself and the creative work that I was doing. And I let a lot of that go, and now I'm really enjoying myself.
Brilliant. And now I'll go to the rapid fire segment. So sorry for derailing that, but
Great,
that
no,
was
it's
great.
fine. It's great
What are you most proud of?
that I'm still here.
What makes you smile?
Um, Bunny rabbits.
I've never had that one. Biggest regret?
Oh, being so hard on myself all the time.
You're getting a lot better with it.
That's right.
What would you do if you knew you could not fail?
Everything. Try everything.
Next big dream or goal?
Um, to go on tour.
Any advice you want to give to people who want to try something different or new, but perhaps a bit fearful of doing so?
Um, I would say try it. And your someone said to me once, your potential is not your obligation. So just because you try something doesn't mean you have to pursue it then as a business or something else. It can just be that thing. So I say try it, try it, try it, try it.
That's brilliant. I'm going to pluck that everywhere. Last two, if you could have any superhero power in the world, what would it be?
I think it would be teleportation because airplanes are not fun.
Save you a lot of time. Last question before I ask how people can follow you and keep up to date with you. What is the one question I should have asked you?
Oh, the one question you should have asked me, what is my favorite gluten-free bread?
And what's the answer to that?
It is, they're called Boss Bagels from the gluten-free bakery, and they're amazing.
How do you go with sourdough?
Um, I can have it on occasion. Thankfully, I'm not celiac, and it's not an allergy; it's an intolerance. But I can go okay with sourdough, like maybe once a week max. But if I have too much of it, it's that buildup, baby. Can't do it.
We're so similar. It drives me nuts. I love a good
I
sourdough.
know. It's the
Oh well,
best.
it's better for a healthier life. Before
You sound so sad when you say that.
I know, because I'm currently cutting out a lot of my intolerances just because I've been super inflamed. So I'm in it. I'm in the thick of it. I haven't had sugar for 2 weeks and I'm going mad. I've got
I
bags
feel
under
your
my
pain.
eyes. And
You're doing it. You can do this. I
Thank
believe
you.
in you.
Thank you. I needed to hear that. And before we go, how can people follow you and keep up to date with you?
Yeah, I think I've got my website, which is lizguterbock.com. That has all my gigs and stuff on it, but Instagram as well. And I'm at Liz Guterbock on Instagram.
Cool. That's in the episode notes below so people can check it out. Thank you. I love your growth and authenticity. You're very inspiring. And yeah, thank you. Thank you so much for doing this.
Such a pleasure. Thank you so much, Michael.
I love how Liz says, despite the success or failures, no matter what happens, she is a creative person. Often when things don't go how we want them to go, we can sacrifice ourselves or our identity in the process. It is important to stay true to yourself, your vision, and your passion. Liz emphasizes the importance of creativity, and regardless if it succeeds or it doesn't, you are still you, and that you are a success by being you and always a creative soul. So I'll leave you with this epic quote. To live a creative life, we must lose our fear of being wrong. Anonymous.
Thank you for listening to the Funny and Failure podcast, exploring the deeper side of comedy.